For more, return to former Pentagon official Michael Maloof. Thanks for joining us, Michael, on this. Okay, so during the summit for peace talks in Syria, Russian leaders told Turkey it had no right to create a safe zone inside Syria without the consent of President Bashar Assad. How big of an issue of this do you think involved in the peace talks in Syria?
Well, I think it's fairly major, particularly since that area is occupied by the Kurds, and Turkey wants to separate from the Kurds, doesn't want Kurds anywhere near the border. But I think President Putin is basically saying, look, you guys got to work it out and sit down and talk about it. The plan probably would be that the Kurds would recede back, and the government would just fill in, the Syrian government would just fill in that spot over time. I think that's probably what it's going to come to. Trump had proposed that 20-mile safe zone across that span, but that's what Turkey wants. The Syrians want their land back. It's that simple.
That's the thing. You know, this trio has met several times. Have we seen any progress resulting from these meetings?
I think we're probably going to see a resolution along the lines that I just mentioned, that ultimately Syria will be allowed to take over, but the Kurds will recede back so that it's predominantly government-controlled occupation and without the Kurds. But President Putin's making sure that these two are talking and that they're not feuding and coming to blows, military blows. He cannot afford that. He needs to show stability of these folks, and so far, so good. And now with Iran coming into the mix, it shows that having all three, Russia, Turkey, and Iran talking along with Syria, Putin is a good, has this ability to make sure that all sides, given their differences and their interests, come together in a compatible way, and so far it's working.
Well, what's interesting about working is we're seeing something happen this week that we haven't seen. You have a BBC producer stepping outside of his normal box, outside of the normal box, and saying that he does believe that these chemical attacks were staged, something that was kind of warned by Moscow weeks before. So do you think this is actually going to change anything, considering we live in a country now where we've seen the changes that happened after the Khashoggi murder? Do you think possibly this might also change how people are approaching the subject?
This particular attack was used as an example of how everyone jumped to conclusions, but they didn't jump to conclusions on the Khashoggi murder. And at the time of the episode of Douma, everyone was saying, look, the bad guys, the terrorists, have the capability to make these weapons, and even Russia warned that it could be staged in order to bring a U.S. response, and that's exactly what happened. They asked for a UN Security Council investigation. Trump ignored it, rejected it. Now everybody wants to study to death the Khashoggi case, and so you have and the same with the poisoning of the alleged poisoning of the former Russian spies in Britain. If it involves Russia at all, it becomes immediate. It's their fault, only because of that anti-Russian mindset that has set in.
Well, it's an easy scapegoat, unfortunately. But at some point, the truth starts to come out, as we're finding out, obviously, even domestically.
This is a BBC
and this is a BBC reporter coming out and saying that. So it kind of brings us to the point that, you know, we've been told President Trump is starting to pull the troops out of Syria because the ISIS, there was a lot of blowbacks. I know ISIS is still there. Supposedly, they're down to just a square mile of territory in Syria. And I'm even seeing that finally reported on most media outlets are saying that they're actually in this last area. Do you think that this is going to be a hard battle to get this final area, or is this going to just be something that we're just going to say, you know what, let them handle it themselves and move on?
They think they can take it out within the week, and that's why you saw this huge intensity of U.S. bombing, which led to tremendous number of civilian casualties as a consequence. I think it was just, kill them all, let God sort them out mentality, and just take care of the last vestige of an ISIS stronghold that we know of. Right. But the reality is they have cells. They're going to pop up anywhere and everywhere as insurgents, and that's just to be That's going to be the new trend by ISIS and even Al-Qaeda.
Well, we know how history works. It repeats itself. So maybe we'll be a little bit more prepared going forward.
I don't think so.
Well, I'm more optimistic than that.
Okay.
It's a Thursday.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's Valentine's Day, so you have to feel the love today. Thank you.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.